An example, different way that is restricted in the way that the financing and the process. I wrote about this in one of my books, in The Lost Legacy, how the financing and the processes need to be streamlined, so that in as much as we want to cut down waste and want to cut down costs, but it's not the same in all the other disorders of the physical health and surgical health. But when it comes to mental health, where there is a more serious danger to the society, to a public health, then we begin to decide what level and what type of a depression requires a certain kind of intervention. What kind of, even children are being discriminated unless you show a certain level of severity. And how much is severe in a mental health? So when people talk about this, you have to ask yourself, what kind of father are you? So as you talk about father, people, these are decisions that are made by fathers. In this celebration, we use this to bring that up, for us to look at example of God himself, to retrace our steps, to go back and look into to see how do we handle this, to make sure that those that need the services get the services, and that the services actually does what it says, because it's also important for them not to have an open check for people to collect money, but actually to be able to make sure that it's targeted towards the people that are most needed, so that the human beings cannot become worse than animals in the way they kill people. Those are more important to the society and to our people, because it shows dignity and it shows human love, concern for the people, not politics, not about gun all the time, not to focus on the gun, but what can it do? We're not going to make any change. What we make a change is to provide a healthcare financing for the states to be able to cater for the need of their people. Not always quarreling and struggling and fighting about how hiring somebody to find a way not to pay providers for services, find a way to deny services to our citizens, try to find a way to not to discount certain conditions of one being more important than the other. Being sick is being sick. That doesn't happen in physical health. You cannot tell somebody who's running a fever, who have a COVID, who have this, that they're not going to get a care. But that happens in mental health. What kind of a father are you? The Lord calls us to look into all these things, that as we are getting ready to go into summer, as people begin to go out, that we begin to think about how to repair for the damages that is already caused. The damages that are caused by COVID, in the way that people are suffering, in the way the young people are no longer learning the skills they need that is known to men for thousands of years. What kind of response do you give to somebody? Does it mean that if anybody say hello to you, you must shoot the person? And if somebody disagrees with you, you must kill the person? Does that mean that is a skill that is acceptable to the society? What is the norms and the values of the society? That is the kind of thing that the father should address with all their children. That also that you see that the children who used to always be in the video game are no longer don't have interest, because they were born in the video game era rather than actually going outside to play. When somebody say or do things you don't like, they don't have the skill to walk away, to ignore. They have the skill of vengeance, as they see in video game, as they do and as they know. That's all they know. So where is the provision to educate and reorientate the people, to train the people, to coach them, to let them know what are the skills that is needed for people to interact and live in a civilized society? And what kind of example are the fathers and the mothers showing for their children? That's the message that I want you to hear today as the soldiers. What kind of father are you? And what kind of example are you? What kind of things do you teach your children? What kind of things do you teach your family? What kind of skills do they know about human interaction and human relations? What kind of things they know about disagreement, dispute, and conflict? If we fail to address this issue, then we have a more serious problem in the future. That as we come to the end of today's message, that as you reflect in the word of the Lord, to look at the examples the Lord has given unto us. And if you go again in the book of 1 Corinthians in chapter 5, yesterday we read that again, explaining in the socio-economic implications of about morality and things that we do, to see how that affects everything else around the life of people and people of this country. That it is time for us to rise, to be able to be a responsible father and a responsible leader that for once thinks about everybody in this country to be like their own child, so that we can be able to sit down and implement a policy and plan that address the issue by treating people who are in need. Yes, there may be some people that will reject it, especially with the population that I just cited, the blacks, the Hispanics, and the Asians, who have stigmas and have a different perception about that. But there should be something in place that makes it easier and available. For example, in the issue of technology, where you have people who don't even have email address, and then in the time of COVID, how are they going to get services? Even we're required to have a consent. So it takes an extra work, an extra burden, an extra cost upon the providers in order to make sure that compliance is achieved and the quality care is given. People that don't have internet, people that live in a big, mighty public housing, there is no poor connections and in connectivity, that cannot get on a telehealth in order to get a video. So these are all the challenges that need to be considered in order for us to be able to find the right way and the way to address this issue, so that people will not be getting less than what they deserve, so that we can be able to equally, because I remember during the retired Senator McCoskey, we circulated and campaigned for the Parity Act in 2008, the Parity Act that later on passed, the Parity Act that ensures equity in the way services are rendered, but yet there is still inequity in the way mental health is delivered. There is inequity in the way authorization for mental health is given compared to physical health. There is inequity in the way payment is done, considering how much that is paid for each particular American compared to other types of health care. So we need to be able to look into that. It might be a big cost, there is no money for it, but there should be a way to factor that in. And we also blame the church. The Lord had declared before about how the church has forsaken counseling. There used to be a source of substitution, a place people can go. People don't believe in church no more, but even those that still go to church, their pastors are not available to them so that they can provide counseling to them, that for those